Hello, my name is Mireille. On my 38th birthday, the woman who used to be my mother handed me a gift, an iPhone box. I thought maybe this time I mattered. But inside was a half-used roll of toilet paper. A sticky note read, "Only good boys get toys." Everyone laughed. And that wasn't the worst part. They'd already rewritten my father's will, used my name to steal from me, branded me unstable behind my back. My own sister labeled my grief as a diagnosis. But the question I still ask myself is, how long had they been planning it? I stepped into the warmth of Vera's foyer just after 10. The smell of cinnamon and clove hit me first, classic pre-Thanksgiving pageantry. The kind that says, "Look how wholesome we are," while something underneath quietly rots. The house gleamed as it always did, pristine, perfect, performative. She even had the audacity to put up a welcome banner, like this wasn't her annual spectacle of pretending we were a family. I hadn't been back in almost a year. Last time, I'd left early, making some excuse about grading papers. This time, I promised myself I'd stay an hour, tops. Just long enough to avoid another guilt-tripped voicemail about being distant. "Look who finally showed up," Isolde chirped, holding a wine glass, already half empty. Her eyes scanned me from boots to blouse. "Thought maybe you got lost on the way to your own birthday." I smiled. Not because it was funny, but because that's what you do here. You smile, nod, and swallow the sharp edge rising in your throat. "Traffic was slow," I said. "Lie." The living room was filled with familiar faces, none of them warm. Dorian, of course, had already claimed the seat next to Vera, their body language synchronized like they were co-chairs of some secret boardroom. Lyra sat cross-legged near the coffee table, flipping through her iPad, earbuds in. She looked up when I walked in, offered me a small wave. That was enough, for now. "Mireille, come sit." Vera gestured toward the open seat like she'd just remembered I existed. "We're just about to start." The brunch was exactly what I expected. Mimosas and performative gratitude. Vera made sure to toast every person in the room. To Dorian for landing another funding round, to Isolde for helping so many people find emotional clarity. Her eyes skimmed right over me. And to family, always showing up for each other. Everyone raised their glasses. I sipped water. Then, just as I started mentally planning my exit, Vera clapped her hands. "Almost forgot! We have a gift!" My stomach tightened. From behind the chair, she pulled out a white apple box, sleek, shiny, untouched. "Happy birthday, sweetie," she said, sliding it across the coffee table toward me. "We thought you deserved something special." All eyes were on me. Dorian smirked. Isolde leaned in. Even Lyra took out one earbud. I picked it up slowly. It was heavier than I expected. Maybe this time, just maybe, they weren't trying to make a point. Maybe it was an actual gift, not some passive-aggressive jab wrapped in faux love. I peeled off the lid. Inside, coiled like a joke with no punchline, was a half-used roll of toilet paper. A sticky note stuck to the roll read, "Only good boys get toys." Silence. Then laughter, loud, open-mouthed, unfiltered. Isolde practically wheezed. "Oh my God, did you see her face?" Dorian slapped his knee. "Classic, Mom. You nailed it." Even Lyra let out a confused chuckle before looking at me like she wasn't sure what emotion to wear. I placed the box back on the table. My fingers didn't tremble. "Not yet." "That's enough," I said quietly. But no one heard it. Or maybe they did and chose not to care. Vera was already sipping her mimosa. "Oh, come on, Mireille. Lighten up. You always take things so seriously." "Yeah," Isolde added, nudging me with her foot. "It's just a bit of fun." I nodded slowly. "Of course, fun." But something inside me had shifted. And I felt it. Not rage, not yet. But a tight coil winding around something deeper. Something I'd kept buried for too long. After the cake, store-bought, ironically, I excused myself and went to the bathroom, locked the door, sat on the closed toilet lid, and pulled out my phone. There it was. Already. A video, 32 seconds long. Captioned, "She really thought it was real." I watched myself opening the box, my expression shifting from tentative hope to whatever that was. Disappointment, probably. Familiarity. It had already been viewed 18 times. Liked 6. The family WhatsApp group didn't waste time. Then 2 missed calls. My department chair. I didn't listen to the voicemails. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my contacts, scrolled past names I hadn't dared tap in years. When I reached his, my thumb hovered. Rowan. 10 years. But I remembered the digits by heart. I didn't type a long message, just 3 words. "I need help." He replied in under a minute. "Mireille?" Just 1 word. Simple. But my chest tightened like I'd been holding something in for years, and it finally exhaled without my permission. I stared at the screen. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but nothing came out. What do you say to someone who once held your whole heart, then vanished because your mother said he didn't belong at her table? Instead of answering, I locked my phone, slid it back into my coat pocket, and splashed cold water on my face. I couldn't let them see anything crack. Not today. Back in the living room, the table had been cleared, and Vera stood holding a champagne flute like it was a microphone. The family gathered around, plates still sticky with syrup, and the faint scent of burnt turkey sausage lingering in the air. "Before we wrap up this lovely morning," she began, voice sweetened to perfection, "I'd like to say a few words." It was her ritual. Always before dessert. Her pre-Thanksgiving toast. The one where she praised everyone who made her proud and left the rest to guess where they stood. She lifted her glass and smiled at Isolde. "To my daughter, whose practice has grown so much this year. The way you help others, Isolde, is nothing short of grace." Polite claps followed. Then she turned toward Dorian. "And to my son, who just closed another funding round for his company. He's building something that will change the world." More clapping, louder this time. She paused, her eyes sweeping over the room, but not landing on me. "And of course, to the daughter who has carried this family with brilliance and compassion." My name didn't leave her lips. Everyone clapped again. I didn't. I sat still, as if even blinking would shatter the fragile calm I was barely holding on to. She meant Isolde, clearly. Again. When the toast ended, I stood to collect a plate or two. Anything to move. Anything to make my hands look useful instead of clenched under the table. In the kitchen, Isolde leaned against the counter with her glass, her red lipstick barely smudged. "Don't overthink it," she said without looking at me. She meant me, obviously. I didn't reply. I just stared at the sponge in the sink like it held a better conversation. After lunch, Vera brought out her latest obsession, the family yearbook, a glossy photo album she had printed and mailed every December to her bridge group and church circle. Apparently, this year she wanted everyone to preview it in person. She passed it around like it was sacred. When it reached me, I flipped through slowly. Birthdays, vacations, cookouts, all the smiles choreographed just right. There was Dorian in Lake Geneva, shirtless on a rented boat, posing like a catalog ad. Isolde at her wellness retreat, all white linen and coastal calm. Even Vera, sitting on a bench next to Lyra, hair perfectly curled and captioned, 3 generations of strong women. I kept turning pages. I wasn't in a single one. Not the brunch I hosted for Father's Day. Not the evening I brought soup when Vera had the flu. Not even the picnic I planned in May, the one she canceled last minute, but still posted photos from, framing it like she had done it all herself. "You weren't around much this year," she said casually, sipping coffee like nothing. "Didn't think you'd mind." I wanted to say, "You never asked," but I didn't. What was the point? Back in my apartment later that evening, I tossed my coat over a chair and sat down on the edge of the bed. Outside, the November sky was bruised purple, early sunset leaking through the blinds. My hands found the laptop before I even realized I was reaching for it. I typed the password, the one I'd never changed. A folder blinked open, Dad, final days. It had been sitting there untouched for months. Part of me didn't want to know if I could handle what was inside. But tonight, after the toast, the yearbook, and the absence of my name in every sentence, I needed to hear his voice. I double-clicked. The screen lit up. My father's face filled the frame, older than I remembered, more fragile. His eyes were clear, though, and his tone calm. He wore his favorite gray cardigan and sat in the worn armchair we used to call his throne, back when laughter still lived in this family. He looked straight at the camera. "If they ignore Mireille again," he said softly, "it means they've failed me." I'd forgotten that line. Or maybe I forced myself to. But now it echoed in my apartment, in my chest, in every quiet moment I thought I was done needing approval. "If they ignore Mireille again, it means they've failed me." His voice, thin and tired, had never sounded so alive. I let the video run. Dad sat slouched but clear-minded. He spoke about me, by name, not like an afterthought, but as someone real. "She was the one who showed up," he said. "When the others sent flowers, she made soup. She came without asking what time." I pressed pause before he finished. I wasn't ready for the rest. I printed a screenshot of that frame. His eyes, a bit sunken but soft, and drove straight to Vera's. She answered the door, still in her silk robe, coffee in one hand. Her eyes narrowed when she saw the paper in mine. "You could have called." "You could have played that video after the funeral," I said, stepping inside. I didn't wait for her invitation. She glanced at the image. "What is this supposed to prove?" "That he wanted to be heard," I said. "That he named me, not Dorian. That he meant it." Vera sipped her coffee slowly, unbothered. "He was medicated, Mireille. You know how confused he was toward the end." "He wasn't confused. He was clear, and he said a lot of things," she cut in, her voice sharper now, and most of it was rambling. My fingers tightened around the paper. "He named me his caretaker, not you, not Isolde, me." And then she smiled, a small, cruel thing. "You were never even mine," she said. I blinked. "What?" "You heard me." Her tone turned flat. "You're not my daughter." The words didn't register at first. They hung in the air like steam off a boiling pot, invisible but scalding. "You were the mistake he brought home," she continued. "Some woman from before me. He said you had nowhere else to go, so I raised you, out of obligation." I took a step back. The coffee mug clinked softly on the granite counter. She didn't flinch. "I kept you clothed. I kept you in school. I put your name on Christmas cards. That was generous." My voice barely held. "So all these years, the way you treated me was controlled," she said. "Was polite. You should be grateful I didn't send you back." I left without another word. Drove with the windows down, even though the wind was sharp and bitter. It felt like the only thing real. 3 days passed. I didn't call her, didn't answer Isolde's texts. But then, one afternoon, Isolde messaged, "Come over, just us. I want to talk." I should have known better, but I went. Her apartment smelled like lavender and guilt. She poured tea without asking if I wanted any. "I heard about your visit to Mom," she said, sitting across from me. "That couldn't have been easy." "She's not my mom," I replied. "Not anymore." She gave a sympathetic nod. The kind therapists are trained to deliver. "Family is complicated." "No," I said. "She's just manipulative." Isolde sighed, then pulled something from a drawer. It was a copy of my journal, my handwriting, my private thoughts. "You wrote this," she said gently. "These entries, they're concerning." I stared at the pages, highlights, margin notes. "You read my journal?" "I found it when you stayed over. I only read it because I care." "You annotated it like a textbook." "These moods, the way you describe your dreams, it's textbook clinical, Mireille. You know that." I stood up. "You're not my therapist, Isolde." "I'm trying to help." "No, you're trying to control the narrative." She said nothing, just tilted her head, like she was analyzing me for sport. I left the tea untouched and walked out. This time, I didn't drive home. I parked by the lake, stared out at the water until the sun disappeared, and let my breath return to normal. Back home, I dug through my bookshelf, found the journal, and tore out every page she had seen. Then I opened my laptop. Title: Statement of Claim. This wasn't about therapy. It wasn't even about healing. This was about truth. As I typed the opening sentence, a ping lit up my inbox. Rowan. Subject line: You'll want to see this. I scrolled through the attachments, pulse rising. The first document was dated 6 months before Dad passed. The header read, Last Will and Testament, Richard E. Turner. My name appeared 3 lines in, centered, bolded, and untouched by edits. To be delivered directly to Mireille in the event of my death. I blinked at the clause. He hadn't just named me. He'd tried to ensure it couldn't be twisted, couldn't be touched. A message from Rowan sat at the bottom of the email thread. This version was never filed. There's more. Call me when you're alone. I called right away. It rang twice. Mireille, he answered. You saw it? He tried to protect it from her, I said. My voice felt strange, like it belonged to someone further away. Yeah, Rowan replied. But that email was a draft. He never sent it to the attorney. I don't know why. I leaned back against the kitchen counter. Maybe he thought she wouldn't go that far. She did, he said plainly. The scan you saw at the reading, the signature was cropped. It's from a lease agreement from 2 years earlier. Same pen, same angle. That was forged? Rowan exhaled. Legally speaking, it's doctored. That's all I'll say for now. I didn't say anything for a few seconds. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because every thought in my head collided at once. I don't care about the house, I told him. I want the truth on the record. There was a pause. Then Rowan said quietly, Then let's start building your case. Later that night, I dug through Dad's backup drive. Old emails, half-finished notes, phone screenshots. I found a draft to his lawyer titled, Final Filing. It outlined the revised will, his desire to bypass Vera entirely. In the draft, he wrote, Only she deserves it. She's the one who stayed. But the email was never sent. As I sat in the dark, reading his words, my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I hesitated, then answered. Ms. Turner, this is from Evanston Bank and Trust. You've missed a payment on your personal loan. I blinked. I don't have a loan. There's a balance of $25,000 due, opened last May. You co-signed with a Mr. Dorian Turner? I almost dropped the phone. I asked them to email the documents. When they came in, I forwarded them straight to Rowan. A minute later, he called again. This is identity misuse. And it's criminal, he said. They used your social. Your signature's a scan. Again. My chest went tight, but I didn't flinch. Not anymore. He used me to secure a line of credit? It looks that way. They ran it as family-backed. He's not family. I know. I sat at my desk, opened a new folder on my desktop, and named it Evidence. Into it, I dropped the will, the email drafts, the loan paperwork, the signature overlays. I made sure every file name was clean and dated. Then I added one more thing, a photo of the iPhone box with the toilet paper roll, labeled Trigger. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't cry. I wasn't even angry in the way I used to be. I was done waiting for them to come clean. In the morning, I called Vera. She picked up on the second ring. I'm giving you the chance to say it yourself, I said, to come forward, to tell the truth. Her voice didn't waver. What truth are you referring to, Mireille? The will, the loan, the years of erasing me. She was quiet. Do you want to start a war? She asked, voice cool and practiced. No, I said, but I'm not afraid of one either. Click. She hung up. Not even a full minute later, my screen lit up again. Isolde, I answered. You don't want to start a war, Mireille, she said evenly. Her tone wasn't emotional. It was managerial, like she was diffusing a boardroom issue, not threatening her sister. Because once you open this door, she continued, it doesn't shut. You know he left it to me, I said. I know you've had a rough year, she replied, but don't make that our problem. I'm not asking, I said. No, she said. You're accusing. You're rewriting the narrative. I breathed through my nose and didn't give her the pleasure of rattling me. I'm just telling it, I said. The part you've tried to erase. She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was lower. If you go public with this, we respond. You know that, right? I'm counting on it. I opened the file marked Dad's voice and clicked play. His voice came through faintly, recorded on some outdated phone mic, but the message was clear. He spoke in that way he used to when he wanted to tell the truth without scaring anyone. Slow, deliberate, and quiet enough to make you lean in. If this ever reaches you, he said, then someone did the wrong thing, and I'm sorry for not protecting you better. His breath caught. There are things in the house, in the office drawer, originals. I made sure they had your name, not theirs. You deserve more than to be someone's target. By the time it ended, I was still at my kitchen counter, gripping the edge like the floor might tilt. It didn't, but something inside me finally settled. Not peace exactly, more like a decision, cold, clean. I wasn't going to ask again. The next evening, just after dinner, my phone rang. Unknown number. Think this through, Mireille? Isolde's voice slid out calm and smooth, like she had practiced it in front of a mirror. The family has always protected you. I put her on speaker and hit record. You're spiraling, she said, the smile audible in her tone. Mom's worried. We all are. I didn't say a word. We've talked about guardianship, just temporary, until you stabilize. That part she said, like she was describing a weather forecast. Calm, distant, professional. I ended the call and saved the file. By 9 p.m., I was folding laundry when I heard a soft knock. I opened the door, expecting nothing, but there it was. A plain envelope slid under my mat. No name, no label, just weight and silence. Inside, a handwritten letter from Simeon, folded carefully, along with a notarized document. He confessed. Vera had offered him seed funding for his firm, 25 grand to be exact. In exchange, walk away from me, no explanation, just vanish. And he did. I told myself it was business, he wrote. But it wasn't. It was betrayal. I'm sorry I sold you like that. I should have fought for you. I sat on the floor reading it 3 times, slower each time. Then I picked up the legal doc he'd enclosed. It outlined the transfer of funds, signed, sealed, confirmed. There it was in black and white. The last man I loved had a price, and my family said it. Oddly, I didn't cry. The ache had burned itself out days ago. What remained was steel, sharp, cold, focused. I called Rowan. He met me the next morning at a coffee shop near the courthouse. No small talk, just papers. He laid them out one by one, flipping to key sections. This one's important, he said, pointing to a transaction sheet. It's an authorization to access the estate's reserve fund, signed with your name. But, look here, this isn't your handwriting. It's traced. He slid another page forward. This line says you approved a $40,000 withdrawal for family liquidity needs. That's a legal term. You didn't use that phrase in any of your statements or emails. No, I said. I don't even talk like that. Then you've got forgery, possibly wire fraud, and depending on who benefited, embezzlement. I looked at the names on the payout log. Dorian, Vera, a financial advisor linked to Isolde's clinic. My name had been a lever, a useful tool, not a daughter, not a sister, a co-signer. I printed it all. That night, I sat at my desk and composed the email. Vera, Isolde, and Dorian on CC. Rowan on BCC. Subject, final notice before action body. If no public correction or restitution is made within 5 days, this becomes a court matter. Documents enclosed. I hit send at 10:43 p.m. At 3:17 a.m., I woke to the buzz of a reply. It was from Dorian. "You're not going to ruin us over one stupid box," it read. "You want a war? You got it." I didn't reply. Instead, I went back to the folder on my desktop, found the clip labeled Dad Final Days, Full Version, and I clicked play. 30 minutes after that confrontation, I sat at my desk with trembling fingers and uploaded the video. I didn't hesitate. I didn't second guess. I tagged every relative, every distant friend of the family, whoever forwarded Vera's holiday reflections emails, every person who ever said, "Your mom means well." Then I clicked post. The silence that followed wasn't peaceful. It was heavy, like the pause right before a window shatters. The kind of silence where people stop pretending not to watch. The next morning, I woke up to 73 unread messages. A few were from cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. One read simply, "Finally." Another said, "She did that to me too." But most were quiet. Seen. No reply. By noon, the view count on the video had passed 12,000. By dinner, it was at 47,000. I didn't refresh after that. Instead, I poured myself a cup of lukewarm coffee and played the full audio file from Dad again. His voice, soft but certain, filled the room. "Silence," he said, "is a form of betrayal. Sometimes the only way to protect something is to call out what's poisoning it, even if it breaks you." That was the last time I cried that week. The following day, an article popped up in my feed. Dorian's smiling face right at the top. Innovator of the Year, meet the man behind the next big tech shift. I clicked, already knowing. There it was. The core of the project, the idea we once sketched together over takeout on a rainy night in grad school, presented as his. No credit. No mention. Just a quote about how collaborating with family can spark genius. Family. I closed the laptop without reading the rest. That Sunday, Vera hosted one of her quiet brunches. Code for a tightly curated guest list, people who would praise her baking and ignore the family drama. I hadn't planned to go, but I showed up anyway. When I walked in, nobody greeted me. No hugs, no eye contact. Isolde handed me a towel and muttered, "Can you wipe down the coffee table?" like I was the help. I didn't answer. Instead, I walked past the buffet, straight to the center of the room where the family photo wall used to be. In my bag were 3 folders, one with the tech article, another with the bank documents, and the last, a screenshot of the forged will. I dropped them on the table beside the quiche. Conversations slowed, then stopped. "Next time you steal my work," I said to Dorian, "make sure you're not stealing from a legally documented author." He laughed nervously. "What's this, a performance?" I turned to Vera. "And the next time you forge my signature, maybe don't do it while I'm on a recorded call saying I never signed anything." She opened her mouth, but I didn't give her the chance. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out a phone, played a 15-second clip from Dad's video, the part where he names me as the only one who showed up, the only one who knew what he needed. The room went still. Lyra sat frozen, her fork mid-air. A cousin excused herself and left. No one said a word. Then, of course, Isolde tried. "She's unstable," she said, forcing a smile. "We've been concerned for a while." From the doorway, a voice answered before I could. "Then let's let a judge decide that." Rowan stepped forward, suit clean, papers in hand. He didn't raise his voice, just laid a sealed envelope on the table. "I'm here to represent Ms. Mireille Turner. This is a cease and desist. You'll want to read it before brunch is over." Isolde flushed. Vera stood stiff, her hand gripping the edge of the table. Dorian stepped back. Nobody laughed. I turned to Vera one last time. "This was your last time deciding who gets to speak." She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She said nothing at all. By morning, the view count had surpassed 45,000. I wasn't even out of bed when my phone started vibrating across the nightstand. Texts, missed calls, emails, most from names I hadn't seen pop up in years. A cousin from California wrote, "Took guts. Proud of you?" Another message, shorter. "They did this to me too." But the majority said nothing. Just silence. That familiar, shameful quiet I'd grown up inside, now multiplied across devices. I made coffee, sat by the window, and scrolled through the comments on the post. Some strangers were kind, others blunt. One said, "This is exactly why daughters go no contact." Another asked if I had plans to press charges. The support felt overwhelming, but even more powerful was the absence of denial. Not one person said, "That doesn't sound like your mother." By early afternoon, Vera broke her own silence. A calendar invite appeared in my inbox. Family conversation, Zoom, mandatory attendance. The title alone told me everything I needed to know. I joined the call at exactly 3:00 p.m. Vera appeared on screen, looking smaller than usual. She wore a pale cardigan and an oxygen tube curved under her nose like a stage prop. Behind her, the house looked sterile. No books, no framed photos, just carefully curated emptiness. "I want to clear a few things," she said, voice soft but practiced. "My daughter is unwell. She's struggled privately for a long time. We've tried to help her, gently." Then Isolde's face joined. Her tone matched Vera's, measured, intentional. "We love Mireille, of course," she said, "but it's been difficult. We were in the process of petitioning for guardianship, just temporarily, until she could stabilize." I let them speak. 5 minutes, uninterrupted. Then I clicked the share screen button. The documents appeared first. Letters from 2 separate clinicians stating I had no diagnosis of mental instability, no signs of harm to self or others, no reason for guardianship. Then I played the audio recording of Isolde's call from last week. "You're spiraling. We've talked about guardianship, just temporary, until you stabilize." Her voice sounded colder when played back, sharper. It made the call seem like what it truly was, a trap disguised as concern. Rowan joined the call silently. No video, just his name in black letters. Still, his presence made the air shift. Isolde's screen froze. Vera looked off camera, then back. "I never approved that," she said. "That call was taken out of context." From a corner tile, a voice cut in. "Uncle Roy. He hadn't spoken to me in over 6 years. Not since Dad's funeral." Now his voice was hoarse and slow. "Vera," he said, "what the hell is this?" Vera blinked, said nothing. I looked directly into the lens of my webcam and spoke like I wasn't tired anymore. "You played the role of mother," I said, "but I lived daughterless." No one answered. When the call ended, Vera logged off first. Isolde lingered a few seconds longer, then vanished. Rowan messaged me privately, "You're free to file whenever you're ready." I didn't reply. Instead, I stared at the black screen, reflecting my own face. It didn't look broken, it looked focused. Then, a ping, a message from Lyra. "Can I come over?" I replied with one word. "Always." I barely had time to close my laptop before I heard the soft knock at the door. No buzz from the gate, no heads-up text. Just a quiet, almost timid knock. When I opened it, Lyra stood there with a worn-out backpack and an envelope clutched tightly in her hand. Her eyes were puffy, her hoodie a size too big, and her shoes looked like she'd walked a long way in them. "Mom doesn't know I'm here," she whispered, glancing down the hallway behind her. I stepped aside and nodded. "Come in." She walked in slowly, looking around like she was seeing the space for the first time. I hadn't changed much in my apartment over the years, but something about her gaze made it all feel newer. Like she was finally noticing the photos on the shelf, the stack of books I used to lend her, the half-eaten chocolate bar on the counter. We sat at the kitchen table. She pulled the envelope from her hoodie pocket and placed it in front of me without a word. It was yellowed around the edges. My name was written on it in my father's handwriting. Neat, distinct, a little shaky at the end. Dated 3 months before he passed. I swallowed and opened it slowly. The letter inside was simple. My father never used 2 words where one would do. Mireille, I know they've already started circling. I can feel it. I won't be here when it explodes, and I'm sorry for that. But I've seen this coming. You deserve the truth. In the back of the office drawer, the one with the broken rail, you'll find a sealed folder marked Trust. It has everything: the original will, the real list of assets, and a personal note to you. I didn't give it to Vera. I didn't want to risk her burying it. You've been the only one who asked how I was, not what I could still give. You were always my peace. Dad. I didn't cry, not immediately, but my fingers shook as I folded the letter again. He left it for you, Lyra said softly. I saw Mom find it after he died. She tore it in half and threw it in the fireplace. I turned to her, heart pounding. I waited until she left the room, she continued, and I pulled it out with tongs. I taped it back together in my closet. She bit her lip. I didn't know if it mattered, but when I saw the video you posted, I figured it did. I stood and pulled her into my arms. She melted into me like a child who'd been holding her breath for months. They lied about you, she said against my shoulder. I know that now. We sat there like that for a long while. No phones, no news. Just the 2 of us, and the long overdue truth pressing gently between us. The next day, Rowan and I filed the formal complaint. The letter, the forged documents, the medical fraud, all bundled into a single, airtight case. Within a week, cease and desist letters were hand-delivered to Vera and Dorian. One to Isolde's clinic as well. A local paper picked up the story. They called it Inheritance Fraud Under Fire in Evanston. Subtle, but accurate. Vera didn't respond publicly. She didn't call, didn't text. Just one email, a week later. You've broken us, I replied. You did that long before I spoke. A month later, I retrieved all of Dad's archived photos, audio clips, and handwritten stories from his cloud backup. Some were mundane, a grocery list, a half-written joke. Others stopped me cold. A voicemail he never sent, titled Mireille's Birthday, where he talked about wanting to surprise me with something meaningful, something that mattered. I uploaded it all to a private site, titled For Truth, Not Performance. Lyra helped me format the homepage. Want a tagline? She asked, hovering over the edit box. I thought about it, then typed, Not everything buried stays hidden. That night, we sat on the porch with blankets draped over our legs. The air was crisp, the kind that hinted at fall's retreat and winter's approach. Lyra leaned into my side. Do you think they'll ever apologize? She asked quietly. I looked up at the sky. Empty, still, forgiving. They already did, I said, in silence. It began with morning light and a knock on the door. I was still in my robe, hair pulled back, with no intention of seeing anyone, when the courier handed me a thick envelope. He didn't say much, just confirmed my name and asked for a signature. Back inside, I opened it on the kitchen counter, hands steady. The letterhead read, Office of the Cook County Probate Court. I read the words twice, then a third time out loud to myself, as if speaking them made them real. All claims contested were now under formal investigation, all disputed estate transfers frozen, and me, Mireille Turner, officially recognized as the primary heir, digital executor, and legal steward of my father's written, recorded, and intellectual property. It wasn't about the house. It never was. It was about someone, somewhere, finally putting my name where it always should have been. I stood there for a long time, holding the confirmation, letting the morning sun slide across the floor and warm my bare feet. There were no tears, just a quiet click inside my chest, like a door finally closing. By the end of the week, Dorian's social media had vanished. No more posts about investor brunches, no more curated vacation selfies. Just silence. Isolde released a statement through her practices blog, stepping back for personal reflection and renewal. No names, no details, just vague apologies and spiritual jargon. Vera never responded at all. No apology, no denial, just nothing. It was enough. The video kept spreading. People shared it not because of the scandal, but because of the familiarity. I got messages from women in Kansas, New York, rural Oregon, daughters who'd been called too much or not enough. One wrote, "You made me feel seen." Another sent me a photo of an old wrinkled note her mom once left on her pillow. "You're lucky I even kept you." I didn't reply to every message, but I read them all, and I didn't feel alone anymore. 2 weeks later, I hosted a workshop at the university. It wasn't grand, just 20 chairs, a projector, and a chalkboard I hadn't used since pre-pandemic. The flyer read, "Telling the story they erased." Lyra sat in the front row, arms folded, eyes locked on mine. I talked for 15 minutes, not about revenge, not even about justice, just space. What it meant to exist fully when others wanted you smaller. "We don't rewrite what was taken from us," I said. "We write around it. We plant something else in the dirt they tried to bury us under. And if we're lucky, it grows." They clapped softly. A few people cried. Lyra didn't. But when I stepped down, she stood up and hugged me without saying a word. Later that night, after she went to bed on the pull-out couch, I stood in my home office and looked at the wall above my desk. The white iPhone box was there, clean, mounted in a glass frame. The note that once read, "Only good boys get toys," was still tucked inside. But the words were crossed out in thick red ink. Below it, in my handwriting, "But real daughters build kingdoms from scraps." And that was true. The next evening, we walked to the corner store for ice cream. 2 scoops each, plastic spoons, napkins blowing in the fall wind. We sat on the steps out front, watching the traffic go by, not talking much. There was nothing left to say. No performance, no pretending, just quiet and breathing, and the taste of something sweet. Not every daughter gets justice. But I got truth. And now, I have peace. Sometimes, the people who raise you also teach you how to survive them. This story wasn't just about a birthday gone wrong. It was about reclaiming identity, truth, and peace in the face of betrayal. Mireille didn't fight for revenge. She fought for recognition, for a name that had been erased, and a voice long silenced. Have you ever been made to feel invisible by your own family? Share your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your story. And if this resonated with you, don't forget to subscribe for more powerful, real-life family stories that hit home.